Mazes have long captured the human imagination. Historical records and archaeological findings show that humans have built labyrinths and mazes for thousands of years. Cultures all over the world have built mazes, each using building materials common to their location. The ancient Egyptians favored limestone, the English hedgerows, and the Americans, corn. It should come as no surprise that America's maize building material of choice would be maize, or corn. After all, the United States is the world's largest producer of corn, producing more than 14 billion bushels in 2020 alone. But what might surprise you is that corn mazes have only been around since the early 90s. Since the first was built in 1993, corn mazes have become larger, more complex, and more popular. But how did corn mazes become a thing? If mazes have been around for thousands of years, why didn't America get hip to the game until the early 90s? Well, the answer involves a Broadway producer, a shrinking agricultural economy, and a powerful new technology that emerged in the 1990s. You can't tell the story of corn mazes without talking about Don France. Don France is a Broadway producer who worked on Disney's stage versions of Beauty and the Beast and The Lion King in the 1990s. France essentially invented the corn maze in 1991 after reading a travel brochure about European mazes. He wondered why America hadn't ever joined in on the maze tradition. Later that night, he watched the iconic baseball film Field of Dreams, a movie in which a corn farmer builds a baseball diamond in his cornfield. The following day, France took a cross-country flight from LA to New York, looked down on the country's crop patterns below, and realized, quote, that was the American maze. 2 years later, in 1993, Franz attended his 20-year college reunion at Lebanon Valley College in Annville, Pennsylvania. While there, Franz was introduced to a local farmer who offered Franz 3 acres of corn with which to build his maze. Now that he had the land secured, Franz had to figure out how to build a large-scale maze. Since there were no mazes in America, that meant that there were also no maze designers. So, Franz turned to Europe and teamed up with expert maze maker Adrian Fisher of England. Adrian Fisher is one of the world's leading maze designers. With his late design partner, Randall Coates, Fisher had pioneered the design of symbolic mazes in the 1970s. A symbolic maze functions as a maze on the ground but creates a giant image when viewed from the air. Franz and Fisher decided that the world's first corn maze would be a symbolic maze. Remember, this maze was built in 1993, the same year that the mega blockbuster Jurassic Park was released. Given the film's popularity, Fisher decided that the world's first corn maze would be built in the shape of a dinosaur. Franz and Fisher's dinosaur maze was built by community members and students at Lebanon Valley College. They used tillers and shovels to clear the walking paths. Franz called on his business contacts to help promote the maze, and with their assistance, it became a huge success. The amazing MAiZE Maze opened in Annville, Pennsylvania in September 1993. The 3-acre maze featured nearly 2 miles of walking paths. While only open for 2 weekends that fall, more than 6,000 visitors came to get lost in the corn. With an admission fee of $5 per person, the maze made $33,000, which was donated to the Red Cross. The Guinness Book of World Records even named it the largest maze on Earth, although that rank would fade away as the corn maze trend took off and corn mazes became bigger and bigger. Within just a few years of Franz and Fisher's success, corn mazes began popping up at farms across the U.S. Corn maze statistics are very hard to come by, but according to the website Corn Mazes America, there were at least 800 corn mazes in the United States in 2008. The current number is likely much higher. France, it seemed, had sparked a trend. But there is more to the story than one man's cornfield vision. Economic and technological changes also played a role in the corn maze craze. In the middle of the 20th century, the number of American farms took a nosedive, falling from nearly 7 million farms in 1935 to less than 3 million farms in 1975. As technology improved, farming became less labor-intensive, and the rural economy coalesced into a small number of very large farms producing a majority of the nation's agricultural output. This continues to be the case today. In order for smaller farms to stay afloat, they began to diversify their income streams by offering tourist and entertainment attractions on their farms. Agrotourism, as this practice is called, has been a popular American pastime since at least the Industrial Revolution. As Americans moved away from the farmlands and into the cities, they craved the slower pace and simpler subsistence of rural life. In the late 1880s, dude ranches cropped up as a sort of all-inclusive vacation package designed to scratch that rural itch. Throughout the 19th and 20th centuries, other agritourism attractions became popular, including petting zoos, day camps, and horseback rides. Fast forward to the 1990s after Franz and Fisher created their first corn maze. Farms were eager to join in on this new agritourism attraction. In fact, corn mazes are now the most popular agritourism activity on American farms. This is a huge economic driver when you consider that on many farms, a majority of their income comes from agritourism, up to 90% in some instances. Even if a corn maze is not a farm's main economic driver, it still plays a large role by pulling in crowds who then spend money on other farm attractions, like hay rides, apple orchards, and pumpkin patches. Corn mazes have become so popular that there are even consulting companies that will help farmers create their own. These companies help farmers plan, plant, market, and build large-scale corn mazes. This building process has become easier since the 1990s, thanks to the Global Positioning System, or GPS. Before GPS became commercially available in 1995, corn mazes were designed entirely by hand. Designers would draw their mazes on graph paper, marking pathways, walls, and dead ends. Based on this design, they would carefully cut down the stalks to form the paths of the maze. This was painstaking work, and some farmers continue to use this method. However, these days, farmers can plot their design directly into a tractor's GPS system. The design is overlaid on the screen so the cutter knows where to cut. Some farmers even use drones to help them design and construct their mazes, which is one reason that corn mazes have become so vast and intricate. And boy, have they ever become vast and intricate. You see, when Franz and Fisher chose to build their corn maze in the shape of a dinosaur, they unknowingly threw the gauntlet for years to come. Symbolic mazes are now corn maze tradition, and contemporary designs have become insanely complex. And while technology has helped farmers create these elaborate mazes, the corn is a big help too. In an interview with Canadian Geographic in 2013, Adrian Fisher said that corn mazes provide much more scope for a complex maze network than even a large grass lawn beside a European castle. This is all possible because corn mazes cost so little compared with laying gravel paths and planting every bush with compost. You simply drill the corn seeds as a crop using regular farm machinery. The soil becomes the path with no preparation needed. So, how much do corn mazes cost to build? Generally speaking, corn mazes can cost anywhere from $2,500 to $6,000 to construct. But given the tens of thousands of dollars they can bring into a farm, the cost may be well worth the reward. And what happens to all of that corn? It gets tilled back into the earth. You see, maize farmers use a type of corn called field corn, which is inedible for humans. Sweet corn is the type of corn that you would commonly see in a supermarket. The farmers choose field corn over sweet corn for two reasons. One, it prevents people from picking and eating the corn. And two, field corn grows twice as tall as sweet corn, making the maize walls much taller. So, farmers can't exactly sell the corn to supermarkets after the maize is cut down. And even if that were theoretically possible, the foot traffic from visitors would render the corn inedible anyway. Now that we've covered the history of the corn maze, let's take a look at how awesome these things are. Because corn mazes aren't just mazes. They're entire experiences. Farmers have devised all sorts of ways to make their mazes stand out. The most obvious is sheer size. We've come a long way since France and Fisher's 3-acre maze. It is not at all uncommon for contemporary corn mazes to span dozens of acres and feature several miles of walking paths. Richardson Adventure Farm in Spring Grove, Illinois is one of the largest corn mazes in the world, boasting nearly 10 miles of walking paths. And size is only one part of the picture. Maze designs have become more spectacular over the last 2 decades. Farmers have done truly incredible things with their corn. Designers draw on video games, historical events, celebrities, famous artworks, and space exploration to inform and inspire their designs. Some farmers have even gotten sponsors to pay for the cost of their maze by building the maze in the shape of the sponsoring company's logo. And in 2020 and 2021, many corn maze designs sought to honor the work of first responders and frontline workers. Beyond shape and size, farmers have found other ways to make their corn mazes stand out. Cherry Crest Adventure Farm in Ronks, Pennsylvania, has found creative ways to engage their visitors over the years. In 2014, as part of their Music Through the Decades maze, they introduced musical stations where visitors can play with oversized instruments as they explore the maze. Visitors to Cherry Crest Adventure Farm can also search the corn maze for clues to a crossword puzzle, as well as hidden puzzle pieces that help visitors fill in their map and find their way out. And each year the farm offers an after-dark flashlight maze, which is a big hit with visitors. As you can see, the corn maze has come a long way since 1993, and Americans flock to corn mazes in droves. So to wrap up this video, let's take a moment to reflect on why we love these things so much. As long as mazes have been around, humans have tried to understand why we love them so much. The most common explanations are that mazes are a bonding experience and a challenge. And while both of these are true, they don't tell the full story. I think that the corn maze appeals to something more than our competitive edge or curiosity or even our love of collaboration. It calls out to the part of us that craves a low-risk fright like a haunted house or a scary movie. The same part of us that wants to open locked doors and find out whispered secrets. It is not just the challenge of the maze that draws us in, but the maze itself. It is the aura of intrigue surrounding the entire thing. Why all the tall walls and dead ends? What's hidden within? What could be so valuable or so dangerous? We are compelled by a sense of forbiddenness and the delight of walking through another person's puzzle, of unraveling a mystery that someone else has created for us. We feel a rush of excitement and anticipation. But perhaps more powerful is the feeling of getting away with something, of slipping unnoticed into a mysterious adventure. Unfettered by any real risk to our health or well-being, activities like corn mazes, escape games, and haunted houses give us a safe opportunity to feel the thrill of the forbidden and the obscure. This feeling of safe intrigue, of scary fun, of creepy cozy, is what continues to draw us forward into the maze.